Okay, we're back with yet more netbooks. I've got a couple of more models. It's always great to have a lot of choices when you're going into a new school year, and this year we have quite a few choices now that Intel is finally shipping their Atom Cedar Trail processors. Today I've got with me two models from the Acer Corporation. I've got the Gateway LT40 on the left and the Acer Aspire One D270 on the right. Now you may notice that these look a lot alike. They are a lot alike in many respects. The Gateway model essentially is their consumer line, or their lower cost model. It's designed to be their super competitive model that they put in stores like Best Buy and such. Whereas the Aspire One D270 is more of a commercial or a mass market line for larger orders and those sorts of things. There aren't a whole lot of differences in the two of these, just a little bit under the hood, and we'll talk about those in a second. But let's take a look at them aesthetically first. Now, one thing that I've always criticized about Acer is build quality, and this time around they've really done a pretty good job on these. They do seem a lot more sturdy. You notice they don't make any creaking noises as you twist them or anything like they used to. Gateway and Acer have always been kind of lame in that regard, but they really upped their game on this one. It's a really nice model, nice and sturdy. I don't have any problem putting this in the hands of kids. You will notice that they unfortunately have not moved away from the fingerprint magnet model, so we have very glossy surfaces on this one. The Gateway has a pattern. You may not be able to see it on the video, but it has kind of a wood grain pattern going on it. Acer and Gateway have always been fairly aggressive with their designs. These are very thin. I really like the feel of them, and very light as well. They're nice little machines. Let's take a look at ports on the sides. We have our standard multi-SD slot here on the left. We have separate microphone and headphone jacks, and that's always a nice thing to have. I can't tell you how many times I've run into single headphone jacks and had trouble finding adapters for them. We have our two USB ports and, of course, the Kensington key lock on the right. And if we switch around to the left here, we've got our power in, of course, Ethernet, as you can see, VGA out, which is always great. And we have an HDMI again on this one. Most Atom Cedar Trail processor models have HDMI ports on them, which is great. And yet another USB port. So 3 USBs on this one, HDMI out. Nice design. Same thing basically on the Aspire One over here. We do have an interesting pattern. If you can see it in the video, yeah, you can see it with the glare there. It has an interesting ripple effect on the surface, which is really nice. It gives it some added flair. It also doesn't have the silly pattern. It's more of a metallic pattern on the surface, so it looks a little bit more professional, a little bit nicer design. Again, same ports on the side. You'll notice it is almost identical as far as the plastics go. Still very sturdy, no creaking, no cheapness here on this model. On the inside, we have Acer's standard keyboard. Now, Acer has gone in the direction of a really large keyboard. It's not really the island style or the chiclet style. I really do enjoy it, actually. It's got some very large keys, but it does take some getting used to because the keys really aren't very far apart. So I've found that kids actually find it easier to find the keys and press the keys when they're quite a bit bigger like this, which is somewhat surprising. But for adults who are used to typing, it can be a little bit tricky at first to get a feel for. We do have a universal button at the bottom here, unfortunately, and it is a little bit stiff, and that's really probably my only gripe with this model, is the stiffness of the buttons. It would have been nice to see this separate and a little bit more flexible, but it is still just fine. You know, it's not going to be a big deal for most people. We have a glossy screen again on this one, so we have lots of glare. That's something to consider. This particular model has a HD webcam in it. This is a 1.3 megapixel versus what you typically find on netbooks as a 0.3 megapixel webcam. So that's a plus. And this one also has a 4400 milliamp hour battery, which is a little on the small side, but should get you roughly about 6 hours of battery life on it. Let's take a look at the Gateway. The Gateway is obviously almost identical. As I said, they're using pretty much the same manufacturing to do it. We still have the same keys. Have a slightly different font on the keyboard, but basically it is the same on the inside. We repeated that wood grain pattern here. Same universal button, same glossiness. Difference here is we have a 0.3 megapixel webcam, so it's a little bit lower end webcam. Okay. Under the hood, of course, we have a typical Atom N2600 1.6 gigahertz processor. We have 1 gig of RAM in both of these two models. On the Gateway, you've got a 250 gig hard drive. On the Acer, you have a 320 gig hard drive, so a little bit more space there. And on the Gateway, you also have the standard GMA 3600 GPU for your graphics processing. The D270 actually went upscale a little bit and upgraded that to a 3650, a GMA 3650, which is about 50% faster theoretically, although to be honest with you, I haven't seen a whole lot of difference in the two for performance. Price-wise, these are really very aggressively priced. You can get the Gateway for as low as $250 I've seen. So that makes it very easy to get this into the hands of kids, especially in tight budget times like we have in school districts. Even the D270 with its upscale specs is still lower than a lot of the other models out there at about $289 on the street. Obviously, if you buy them in quantity, you'll get better pricing. Overall, I've really been very pleased with these and quite impressed, actually. We've looked at Acers in the past and never actually chosen them simply because of the quality and build quality on them. But this time around, we've been pretty pleased with them, and we've actually purchased 105 of these to put in kids' hands to see how they do. So I hope you've enjoyed the review, and we'll take a look at these. They run very well with UberMix, and they're good models to use in schools.